2020. Designing Women. 3 uncommon women, unlikely culprits. She planned a hit, she planned a heist, and she hooked up with her students.
You were playing with fire.
First, the fiancé, with a funny way of saying I do, caught on tape giggling, singing, all while hiring a hitman to do in her man.
You really want to do this? Really?
Did it never occur to you that this isn't normal?
I know it sounds so bad.
You think? Love you to death. And the bank teller forced to strap on a bum to rob her own bank.
She's saying, please, 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 I don't want to die.
But is she the pawn or the queen? How the plan exploded in her face.
Bank robbery, bomb, kidnapping. You got a trifecta there.
Bombing out. Plus, just sentenced to a lot more than detention. A teacher with a marriage on the rocks, but an after-school special in full swing.
How is it that it didn't somehow occur to you, this is wrong, this is a kid?
Arrested for seduced students, not once, not twice, 3 different times. Tonight, meet the new Designing Women.
It sounds crazy.
Here's David Muir.
Today, a different way of looking at crime. We know that men are more commonly the perpetrators, but what happens when women are the real bad guys? Right here tonight, 3 unlikely culprits designing women caught playing with fire. The first one you're about to see caught on tape plotting the murder of her own fiancé, hiring a hitman, describing the way she wants it done, right down to drawing the map to find him. Deb Roberts tonight with the prison interview, defiant, saying this wasn't her design after all. But will you believe her?
You really want to do this? Really? Sure?
Jessica Strom's planning to give her loved fiancé John a special present. A bullet in the head.
Just walk right in. Just open the door. Open the door. No time to respond. That's it.
Don't be fooled by the flirtatious laughter. This meeting is dead serious.
You got a taste of some another one.
She's talking about the man who supposedly stole her heart, John Chalfeffer, a former district attorney and now successful lawyer in the quaint town of Wausau, Wisconsin. A doting father of 3 children, John was divorced and looking for a second chance love when he walked into this bar.
She was young, vibrant, beautiful, all made up behind the bar, and we just clicked.
Nearly 20 years younger, the beautiful bartender was going through her own divorce while raising 2 children and studying, of all things, criminology.
We just started talking and chatting, and I remember she laughed and she said, I never give a number out, but I'm going to give it to you.
Love was in the air, and within weeks, the May-December romance was flourishing.
Did you see her as somebody you wanted to marry?
Oh, yeah. I can remember her saying, boy, you better not be leading me down the wrong path, because when I fall hard, and I'm falling for you.
And that feeling was mutual.
When you find that one person who, for some unexplained reason, just, that's your person.
Betrayal still so raw. Scars for a relationship that ran hot and cold.
When it was good, it was really good. And when it was bad, it was bad.
The good times included romantic nights, even a trip to Disney World for the blended family. The bad times, the kind of stuff you see on reruns of Cops.
She does have an off switch, like she won't stop.
There was some jealousy and some control issues.
On whose part?
On his part.
But John says the problem started with Jessica's volatile temper.
How abusive was she?
If you think it, she's probably done it to me. Stomping on my foot with a high-heeled spike shoe, punches to the face.
He says her weapon of choice was a restraining order. She filed several after heated arguments. Jessica owns up to some of those vicious fights.
I did stab the sofa in the house. I grabbed a knife and I said to him, if you do not give me my car keys and let me leave, I'm going to slice this couch. I just did a slice, and then he screamed, he threw my keys at me, and I said, thank you.
And yet, despite all the drama, the relationship endured. Jessica even moved in with her kids. John, you're a lawyer. You've worked in areas of domestic abuse. Why didn't you just quit this relationship?
Because I loved her.
We have such a strong bond of love, as crazy as that sounds, that we would continue to stay together. You know, it was pure.
Pure, maybe. Bizarre, definitely. After yet another restraining order hearing, a smitten John actually popped the question to Jessica in front of the judge.
He proposed to me on his knee at a court hearing. And the
Court hearing.
he had a restraining order I had filed. And
You had filed a restraining order against him?
yes,
Did it never occur to you that this is normal?
I'm with my feelings, you know, and he was always there for me.
The start and stop love affair went on for 6 years. Until this past winter, when Jessica decided she'd rather plan John's funeral than a wedding. Her chosen hitman, a former classmate from, get this, a criminal justice class she'd just taken. After initially turning Jessica down flat, the man we'll call Alex goes to police. Enter Wausau detective Jennifer Holtz, who took us back to where that first conversation went down.
They sat here and she sprang it on him. Would you kill somebody?
Right. Would you ever consider killing someone? And he said no.
Was he completely blown away by the proposition? Did
I
he
think
say?
he was, yeah. As of course, he'd gone through criminal justice courses with her.
But police needed proof that it was a serious murder-for-hire plan.
We had him call her, and he said, hey, I wanted to talk to you about last night.
Well, I kind of wanted to talk about what we had talked about yesterday a little bit.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, I figured you went on.
This was something she didn't want to discuss on the phone. That was a red flag to us that, okay, this is real.
A serious threat.
Right.
On the call, the two make a plan to meet later that night at this diner in downtown Wausau to discuss the plot face-to-face.
So this is where they came, the sting.
Correct.
And where did they sit?
And we had them set up in a booth right here.
That's Detective Holtz on the video, angling the secret recording device just so, minutes before Jessica arrives.
I didn't know if you wanted to order something or not.
And the sting is on.
So how's it going?
Cold.
I know.
After some small talk about Wisconsin's winter weather, it's down to the murderous business at hand.
Okay, well, I'm listening.
I don't know if you're willing to take the money that I bought to do this.
Probably not, because I told him half that amount.
Probably not.
You say like $50,000, that would be half that amount.
Do 25.
No. You could do $1,000.
For how much? $1,000.
She she offered up $1,000, and she leaned into him flirtatiously and then also offered sex.
Could she really have been serious?
I think in her mind that she thought that $1,000 and sex was going to be good enough for him.
She goes even further, happily detailing how to get the job done.
He will expect you or whoever you are.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
And then you're
Just like that.
So I would draw a picture.
She's giddy, even singing while digging out a pen and paper to draw her hitman a map.
Right here. It's here. This is his whole box right here. You're connected to the garage. And while he's sitting there, you can just do it.
We told him, give her an out. In fact, he asked her that several times. Are you serious? Are you sure about this? And he even asked her, you know, if you're in a bad relationship, why don't you just leave?
I keep thinking, you just walk away from this.
I'm satisfied. I'm satisfied. I'm a whip. That is true love.
One twisted brand of true love. When we return, Jessica has some explaining to do.
Can't see anything without being taken completely out of context.
And guess who she'll turn to for help?
Honey, I don't know if you can do anything.
And then my body started to shake.
You've got to hear this.
Designing Women continues. Once again, Deborah Roberts.
In picturesque Wausau, Wisconsin, single mom Jessica Strom has just sealed a deadly deal, offering a 24-year-old former classmate $1,000 and promise of sex to kill her fiancé, John Shelfeffer.
Sounds so easy. No.
Is anything on your first like crazy?
I had nothing else.
And she's thought of everything, including what she'll do after the hit job if suspicion turns to her.
So when they go looking for someone who did this, they're going to be looking to get you.
Oh yeah.
And then what are you going to say? Just.
That's what. Yeah.
Is she for real?
When you saw the tapes, was there any doubt in your mind that this was a full-fledged plot to kill her fiancé?
Absolutely not. We watched it at our office, and we were all just completely floored by the context of the conversation and her demeanor.
Detective Jennifer Holtz had seen enough and confronted Jessica at her house with her kids asleep upstairs.
When the police showed up at your home, what did you make of that?
I was half asleep on my couch. I had no idea they were there for that at all.
It's 11:15 p.m.
I have no makeup on, thanks.
Did she think she was in trouble when you showed up? Initially, I don't believe so. I don't think it occurred to her that we had taped the entire conversation between her and Alex.
I've been with Don for 7 years. He's done things to me, and I've done things to him too. But it's not like we want to literally kill each other.
Well, you seem like a very smart girl, woman. Smart enough to realize that your entire conversation was recorded. Mm-hmm. And what you're telling me is not true.
And when you learned that the conversation had been recorded?
And it came back to me that, oh, okay, this makes sense why they're here. But at the same time, it wasn't real that it was happening.
Jessa tells investigators she thought the meeting with Alice was about something much more mundane than murder, saying she was hoping her tech-savvy former classmate would help her sort out Wi-Fi problems.
I asked him, can you help me with this internet? And he's like, oh, sure.
How did the idea of killing John even come into the conversation?
He was frustrating me that earlier that week. But I do know that I said something like, well, you could kill him if you wanted to.
But I've seen the tape, and nowhere on there do you talk about the internet.
It was all talked about before, and that's what I had believed. That's why I was beating him for.
So you're saying this was all a big misunderstanding?
Yes, yes.
Even though you offered money to someone, gave your fiance's schedule, drew a map of his house.
Yeah, he knew it wasn't serious.
Certainly, you're not joking when you begin to draw maps and make comments about how now your fingerprints are on this map.
Never. I love that man, and I would not kill him. No.
But yet you're asking this guy to do it.
I know it sounds so bad.
What did you think about the idea that she wanted to have you killed?
At first, I didn't believe it. I thought it was like a joke. And then the body started to shake.
After he calmed down, John watched this video of his soulmate plotting to end his life.
Take 3 minutes.
What do you feel when you look at that tape of yourself?
I feel taken advantage of.
You feel taken advantage of?
I feel taken advantage of. I
Even
really
though
do.
you're the one who's leading him.
He actually led to the conclusion of it all. He's carrying on the conversation. I'm just kind of nonchalantly laughing and singing.
But to even come up with a price, $1,000 plus sex.
That's nuts.
To kill the man that you love?
That's nuts. That's crazy. And, unfortunately, I'm sitting here as a product of that.
Here, meaning the Marathon County Jail, where Jessica has been collecting her thoughts since that night police came knocking. Scared and alone behind bars, she reached out to the one person she knew would answer.
I called John first, who's my first call.
Honey?
Why are you in jail?
I'm in here because I said to somebody that I wanted to kill you. I said it as a total joke. I don't know if you can do anything.
I don't know that it's in my place to help you.
Okay, what can you recommend that I can do, honey?
I'm not getting involved. I am staying out of it. You need to call your attorney.
But these days, John's had a change of heart.
Next day, she calls and says, you need to help me. This isn't real. And 6-7 months later, I come to the conclusion that is the truth.
So you don't think she intended to have you killed?
No.
Though John may not have believed his life was ever on the line, a judge did.
It's a serious crime.
And last month, Jessica accepted a plea deal for solicitation to commit first-degree intentional homicide. That will keep her in prison for at least 3.5 years. At her sentencing hearing, she blamed who else but John.
I see doing what I was always doing, trying to please John. John physically abused me. I'm afraid he will not leave me alone.
Do you wish you hadn't planned John's
I didn't plan. I did not plan at all. Never. I shouldn't have said those things.
But after all the sex, lies, and that videotape, after all the 1,000 reasons why this affair should have ended long ago, the two ill-fated lovers still feel that spark.
Do you still love John?
Very much. Very, very much, with my whole heart.
I do love Jessica to this day.
Still?
To this day.
In spite of everything?
Because I attribute her negative behaviors to mental illness.
Do you still want to be with her in the future?
I would say, yeah.
And believe it or not, Jessica's also leaving that door open.
And when you leave prison, will that relationship ever resume again?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Oh, that crazy thing called love.
If you love someone in your heart, you know, how can you make those feelings go away?
So do you believe this was all a joke? Or on Twitter, use the hashtag ABC2020. And when we come back tonight, another designing woman, a teacher with a confession on camera. It wasn't after just one student. Prosecutors say there were several.
Next, the married teacher with designs on her students.
Number of victims 4.
How did it go from just hello to more?
And more is putting it mildly.
Or are any other students?
Hanging with Mrs. Cooper when Designing Women returns.
Now to the case tonight making headlines. The suburban teacher behind bars now, convicted for what happened outside the classroom. And there was more than one student here. Deborah Roberts, one-on-one with The Exclusive, the former teacher who has her own explanation tonight.
Lauren Cooper is a school teacher heading straight to detention. A long detention. Try at least 9 months in jail. How did this fresh-faced educator end up here? You might call it a case of forbidden love, but in this instance, there are multiple Romeos.
A former educator was accused of child sex charges.
Sexual contact with male students.
Harrington Cooper sent racy text messages.
Allegedly flirting online and in the hallways, all of it leading to sex.
The tawdry tale for this 31-year-old English teacher began in Plymouth, Pennsylvania, a small industrial community nestled between the Pocono Mountains and the Susquehanna River.
Hello, I'm Lauren Cooper.
Miss Cooper, as she was known by her students at Wyoming Valley West High School, was the picture of success. Good job, good looks, and a good husband. Longtime sweetheart Raphael, also a school teacher.
I was attracted to her early on when I was young, but she wasn't about me.
The couple first met as children at dance class, then reunited years later after graduating college and found they still danced a perfect waltz together.
Would you say you were madly in love?
We never, spent an hour away from each other. It was always dance. It was fun times.
Nice.
They soon married and eventually realized a big dream, opening a dance studio to indulge their passion.
Quick, slow.
But their new side business began taking a heavy toll.
It turned into more of a business relationship than a marriage.
So the romance was waning.
Yeah. With us deteriorating in our marriage and having less and less of a relationship, I didn't feel attractive. I didn't feel wanted and feel needed.
Unfulfilled, Mrs. Cooper's eyes began to wander around the school, eventually catching the attention of an 18-year-old senior athlete.
How did it go from just hello to more?
He was very convincing in terms of making me feel good about myself.
What did he say?
Remarks about my appearance.
You're hot?
Yeah.
Pretty?
Yeah, both of those things, yes.
Like a typical teen, the boy professes his adoration publicly, posting on Twitter, "Mrs. Cooper looks good." Then privately, the flirty messages go further.
He was bothering me to pick him up. Let's go for a drive, and for a long time I said no.
Cooper eventually gives in, meeting the teen student near his home in her car, where they have sex. Detective Chaz Ballo later investigated the case.
We're at the Dana Street Elementary School, which is one of the locations that Harrington Cooper brought victim number 1 to have a sexual relationship with. There's another one where they were in a church parking lot.
The boy would later admit to at least 3 sexual encounters with Mrs. Cooper.
It wasn't just a physical connection.
What is that an 18-year-old could do for you besides the physical?
As crazy as this might sound to some people, he's very intelligent. I could have real conversations with him about real life issues.
But how is it that it didn't somehow occur to you, this is wrong, this is a kid?
It did, but it was hard to break away from it.
But the bond would be short-lived as the whirlwind 6-day romance came to a screeching halt. The boy's parents found sexually explicit messages between him and the teacher.
The stepmother was a wreck, absolute wreck.
The school officer on duty, Gina Tosky, questioned the married teacher.
And she told us everything that happened. She had intercourse with him. Her demeanor was shocking to me. It was matter of fact. She couldn't believe that she was there. She didn't realize she did anything wrong.
So when you were found out, what went through your mind?
I thought, okay, I'm losing my job. It didn't hit me how big of a deal it was until I went to be fingerprinted mugshot at the police station and all the cameras were there.
Lauren Cooper was caught. In Pennsylvania, teacher-student relations is a felony. Hours later, she was out on bail, but the next month,
for the second time in less than a month,
arrested again this morning, charges of institutional sexual assault.
Another victim picked her up. They parked and made out and had some inappropriate touching.
This time accused of sexual contact with an underage student, just 17 years old.
There was another student.
Allegedly.
The reports that there was another boy that you had sex with.
Yeah, not true. The initial boy was getting a lot of attention, and some other people wanted to be cool as well. So I think it was like a bandwagoning type thing.
But police point to this text as proof that there was another relationship, with Mrs. Cooper writing, "What 17-year-old doesn't want to have sex with his 31-year-old teacher?"
And my impression is that, from talking to the victim and Harrington Cooper, was that she was strictly just looking for affection. She was very aggressive, very straight to the point.
When police learned of that encounter, Cooper was once again arrested and once again marched in front of those TV cameras.
Lauren, are there any other students?
Shame, guilt, embarrassment?
All of that. And the hits just kept coming.
They certainly did. Incredibly, just 3 weeks later, it's deja vu.
2 more students have come forward.
More charges.
Total of 4 male students.
More boys, more accusations, more criminal charges. And while the English teacher's demeanor has gone from scared to defiant, her husband, Raphael, is just dumbfounded.
When you heard that she had betrayed you with teenage boys, how do you respond to that?
It was rough, getting up every morning, trying to even go to school and teach. And then I'm finding out, in the middle of the day that my wife's being arrested again on another allegation.
This third arrest involved 2 students, one 16, another 17, who claimed Cooper flashed her tattoo, breasted them. But according to police, some of her actions were even more brazen, downright predatory, some might say.
She not only was victimizing the students, she's using other students to hook her up with someone that she finds attractive or hot, as she would refer to it. This is a location where one of the victims was dropped off by another student to meet Harrington Cooper.
A predator, a deviant, a pedophile, whatever it may be. Lauren's not that. Lauren is a really, really troubled, emotional person who had an insatiable need for attention.
It's a problem she says she's working out with her husband. In months since her arrest, the couple's turned to church and a spiritual rebirth, which they say is helping them heal.
You will stay in this marriage?
Absolutely. I don't want anybody else. I don't want to go anywhere else. I've had too many years built up with her and too many good memories.
How do you explain Raphael's devotion in light of all this?
There are no words for it. I mean, he's absolutely remarkable. I wish we never got away from the marriage part.
Moments after our interview, a tearful goodbye for the couple as Lauren Cooper headed off to court.
The defendant had entered a guilty plea to 3 separate cases involving 4 separate victims.
Guilty of 4 charges, including felony sexual contact with that 17-year-old. The one she told me only minutes earlier didn't happen.
She received a sentence of 9 to 23 months plus 5 years consecutive probation.
The former teacher now endured a painful lesson. She'll also have to register as a sex offender for 25 years.
There are parents out there who would say that, you know, you've preyed on kids. What would you say to those parents?
I did do wrong, but I'm not a monster. I am human. And like every other human, I made mistakes. Mine just happens to be in the public eye.
Her husband sticking by her side. So what do you make of it? Tweet us, use the hashtag ABC2020. Now to a brazen bank robbery caught on tape. The horror playing out, the woman terrified, a bomb strapped to her body. Watch closely tonight as this unfolds. Who really designed this plan? Here's Jay Schiller.
The sun's coming up over East Los Angeles, and a bank heist is going down.
Breakings out of East Los Angeles, kidnapping and robbery at a Bank of America.
A longtime bank employee has been kidnapped, strapped with a bomb, and forced into robbing her own bank.
Why have I have nothing to happen to me? Can you hurry? I'm so scared. We're coming, honey. I'm gonna blow out.
Alerted, the LA bomb squad rolls out of its headquarters and heads to the bank on South Atlantic Boulevard.
This would be the highest threat level because there's a person whose life is directly in danger.
Bomb squad veterans Joseph Acevedo and Rob Harris.
The entire street is shut down from one end to the other. There's helicopters, there's police cars, people pushed way back.
Designed for 2 bank robbers who strapped. Local reporter Rob Hayes is covering the heist for KABC.
We're shooting from far, we had the chopper up, and we're just kind of waiting for this thing to play out.
We have an innocent victim that's life's in danger. Our number one priority is to get that person.
The victim is Aurora Barrera, an assistant manager for the bank and an LA native. At 8:20, with the bank still closed, surveillance cameras inside and out show Barrera carefully following the kidnapper's instructions, enlisting the help of the only other employee in the bank as she empties the vault and tosses 2 bags with $500,000 out the side door.
At the very moment Aurora is dropping the bags out this bank door, a getaway car is pulling up on this side street. The robbers have timed this perfectly.
We know that because one of the robbers spoke exclusively with 21.
It was like one of those moments where you have no control over your body. You're just in shock. It was just like money everywhere.
Brian Perez has been recruited into this heist by his friend Richard Menchaca, who drove the first getaway car. Perez says the money is now transferred to his car to keep police off their trail. The handoff takes place at this car wash right around the corner from the bank.
So he opened my door and he pretty much threw all the money in the back of the car.
Sitting in a car wash, looking in the back seat
with over $500,000.
Yeah. And he closes up?
Yeah.
And then what?
He tells me to go slap the car, like, get out of here.
Back at the bank, the bomb squad begins the delicate but dangerous work of removing the bomb from Aurora Barrera's body.
She was sitting in a chair at the desk, just saying, please, 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 I don't want to die, I don't want to die. We saw a black cylinder object below her rib cage, and then we could see a cable.
And some electrical tape. That is how it was connected to the body.
After calming Barrera, the device is gently removed from her. That's her finally walking free from Bomb and the bank. Now the device is isolated and destroyed with the help of the squad robot.
I went back down with the bomb suit, and I got down and pulled all the pieces apart and saw that there was no high explosives, there was no circuitry, it was not a bomb.
Detective Harris signals code 4, meaning all is safe. The device is a fake, but an effective one. The robbers have made away with over $500,000 without ever having stepped into the bank. Where did the money go?
Great question.
This is Special Agent Black.
FBI Special Agent Nicole Black and Huntington Park Detective Joe Settles are the first to interview Aurora after the heist.
She was emotional during the interview.
She would go into trying to describe the events, how scared she was at the time.
I took a shower and...
Slowly, the single 32-year-old woman recounts her early morning abduction.
She got up in the morning, got ready for work. She went to her garage as normal, and once she opened the garage, she was accosted by 2 black males.
They told me that they've been following me, that they were at work, and that I better do everything that they tell me to do.
Held at gunpoint and forced to tape some sort of device on her stomach.
I need to strap it to myself. He gave her tape. He put it around my waist and have some wires. I just saw wires and I'm scared. They gave me a backpack. And they told me to put the money and to throw it through the side door. That if I didn't do what they told me to do, that I was going to get hurt really bad.
As night falls, the search for Barrera's kidnappers and bank robbers goes on.
Authorities are following leads, attempting to track down those 2 suspects who apparently
knew they were African American or black. All I could see was part of this right here. They spoke.
But Barrera's memory is vague, and police began privately questioning whether she was the pawn in this high-stakes game, or perhaps queen. Stay with us, because this bank heist is about to turn into a Bonnie and Clyde whodunit.
Once again, Jay Shadler and more designing women.
When we first met Assistant Bank Manager Aurora Barrera,
There was 2 men inside my garage, and they pointed with the gun, and they shot me.
she had a bomb strapped to her. That's her walking through the bank with the device under her shirt. 2 mysterious robbers had kidnapped her and had forced her into looting more than $500,000 from her own bank.
Forced to open the vault, throw bags of cash out the back door.
In addition to swarming media coverage, local detectives, prosecutors, and now the FBI are all involved in this bizarre case.
Bank robbery, bomb, kidnapping. You got a trifecta there, right?
But you can bet the story's just starting when the cops begin pressing Barrera. Looking for answers, they find only questions and doubt.
I want you to make sure that you're thinking of all your senses.
Red flag number 1, Barrera's demeanor on bank surveillance.
At times, she buttons her jacket or kind of tries to potentially hold the device up as if it may be falling off.
A reasonable person would think they had a device strapped on them that was going to blow up.
You'd think she'd be on eggshells the entire time.
Right. And she wasn't.
Red flag number 2, Barrera is long on dramatics, short on details.
What did you hear? What did you see? What did you smell? She couldn't answer those questions for critical points in the timeline.
It was pulling teeth. One of the things that we noticed right away was that she had a tough time calling the device bomb.
She was very reluctant to say anything more than that thing.
The other guy gave me the whole thing. He's the one that had that thing. He was holding the thing.
And the bomb, as we know, turned out to be a hoax, leading to red flag number 3.
Okay, so you're kind of holding it in place, your right arm, and then
some straps of tape there.
Barrera says the electric tape used to attach the device was torn with her own hands.
the tape stretches when you try to tear it. Usually you need scissors to cut that sort of tape, which would be clean edges, and that seems to be the case in these photographs. It would be very difficult to hold a device, hold a shirt up, tear or cut tape while being held at gunpoint.
And finally, red flag number 4.
When we stopped the bag mostly with singles.
Instead of filling the bags with singles, as she claims, Barrera went straight for her bank's big bills.
So what you can see is that Aurora, in loading up the money, took only the large bills and left behind the ones. If it was your bank and you were trying to protect it, you'd think you'd start with the ones and leave the hundreds behind.
But all of these red flags are just circumstantial evidence. The license plate of the getaway car is not. Watch. Right after Barrera drops the money out of the bank's back door, her co-worker rushes to look out a side window, glimpsing the license plate and giving investigators a solid break in the case. The car is linked to Barrera's boyfriend, Ray Vega, an ex-Marine and a firearms instructor. Vega is cocksure of himself and a tad too angry when the cops call him in for questioning.
I'm pretty pissed off. You could have called me, man. I got hooked in front of a bunch of people that respect me and that I respected. That's really jacked up, John.
He was very agitated. He was angry at the fact that he was being investigated for being part of the robbery.
I mean, a man or a dirtbag. I'm not a bank robber.
Try telling that to your accomplice, Brian Perez, who spoke to us in an exclusive interview.
How would you describe Vega?
Intimidating guy. Vega just came off as like a James Bond kind of wannabe. You look into his eyes and you kind of realize that he may not be totally sane.
Perez, who will later become one of the chief witnesses against both Vega and Barrera, laid out the whole heist to us while driving through the key East LA locations.
Basic plan was he had a girlfriend that worked inside, was going to be a bomb on her chest. She was going to throw money outside of a door. Someone was supposed to pick up and drive off with it.
What did you think?
Crazy. In my mind, I was like, well, this guy's nuts.
And yet, you agreed to it.
I mean, yeah, I did agree to it. He threatened me. He could put a bomb in my car or my parents' car.
Fearing Vega, Perez continues with the plan. That's him rendezvousing with Vega in a parking lot near the bank. Later, Perez transfers the loot to this suitcase and heads to a Ramada Inn 7 miles away from where the heist went down. Here, Perez, Vega, and the driver of the first getaway car, Richard Menchaca, were to begin splitting spoils.
Vega shows up. He enters through the door right there. First thing he looks, he doesn't even look at it. He looks at the money on the table. He just says, I can't believe it. You know, we got away with it.
Is that what he says?
Yeah. And
is that what he says?
They all might have gone scot-free if not for Ray Vega's king-size ego. Even in front of the cops, humility is not one of his strong suits. In fact, he's
so confident in himself that he's basically begging you to go look for information on him.
Yeah, he's filling holes before we even find them for us.
Like this.
If you guys can pull up my phone, you guys can see history. Then you guys can see where it pinged off the cell phone towers where the hell I was.
They did, and he wasn't. His phone was using cell towers 20 miles away when he was supposed to have spent all night at this day's inn.
I do think he believed that he could convince us that his story was true. Enough so that we wouldn't look into it further.
Even after being arrested and out on bond, Vega couldn't help himself. In a vain attempt to buddy up to the cops, he calls Detective Settles with, get this, a Christmas voice message.
We're on the opposite side of the fence right now, man, and regardless, Merry Christmas and be safe, and maybe we can when this over, we'll go have a beer.
At trial, Brian Perez's testimony against his former accomplices proved crucial. He was sentenced to 5 years probation, but Vega got 14 years, Barrera 9. Both are appealing their convictions. So is Barrera the mastermind of this heist, or just one of the players?
She walked to the bank, armed with a hoax explosive.
I would always think that Aurora planned everything inside the bank because she knew the bank.
She knew how to get into the vault.
And the money made it out the side door of the bank, which was the ultimate goal.
So to that extent, Aurora pulled it off.
She did.
In the end, while the criminals were caught, where's the money?
If anyone has the answer to that, they can feel free to give our office a call.
As for the bomb squad guys who were willing to risk their lives to save Aurora Barrera, I couldn't help asking.
When you learned ultimately that she was part of the hoax, what went through your head?
It was those moments where you think you've seen it all, and then you find out that you haven't, you know?
And that's our program here on a Friday night. You can download the new AV News app for much more on this evening's Designing Women. I'm David Moore for Elizabeth and all of us here in 2020. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening. Good night.
Don't be fooled by the flirtatious laughter. This meeting is dead serious.
You have a taste of some one.
She's talking about the man who supposedly stole her heart, John Chalfeffer, a former district attorney and now successful lawyer in the quaint town of Wausau, Wisconsin. A doting father of 3 children, John was divorced and looking for a second chance love when he walked into this bar.
She was young, vibrant, beautiful, all made up behind the bar, and we just clicked.
Nearly 20 years younger, the beautiful bartender was going through her own divorce while raising 2 children and studying, of all things, criminology.
We just started talking and chatting, and I remember she laughed and she said, "I never give a number out, but I'm going to give it to you."
Love was in the air, and within weeks, the May-December romance was flourishing.
Did you see her somebody you wanted to marry?
Oh, yeah. I can remember her saying, boy, you better not be leading me down the wrong path, because when I fall hard, and I'm falling for you.
And that feeling was mutual.
When you find that one person who, for some unexplained reason, just, that's your person.
Betrayal still so raw. Scars for a relationship that ran hot and cold.
When it was good, it was really good, and when it was bad, it was bad.
The good times included romantic nights, even a trip to Disney World for the blended family. The bad times, the kind of stuff you see on reruns of Cops.
She does have an off switch, like she won't stop.
There was some jealousy and some control issues.
On whose part?
On his part.
But John says the problem started with Jessica's volatile temper.
How abusive was she?
If you think it, she's probably done it to me. Stomping on my foot with a high-heeled spike shoe, punches to the face.
He says her weapon of choice was a restraining order. She filed several after heated arguments. Jessica owns up to some of those vicious fights.
I did stab the sofa in the house. I grabbed a knife and I said to...
In detention, a teacher with a marriage on the rocks, but an after-school special in full swing.
How is it that it didn't somehow occur to you, this is wrong, this is a kid?
Arrested for seduced students, not once, not twice, 3 different times. Tonight, meet the new Designing Women.
It sounds crazy.
Here's David Muir.
Today, a different way of looking at crime. We know that men are more commonly the perpetrators, but what happens when women are the real bad guys? Right here tonight, 3 unlikely culprits designing women caught playing with fire. The first one you're about to see caught on tape plotting the murder of her own fiancé, hiring a hitman, describing the way she wants it done, right down to drawing the map to find him. Deb Roberts tonight with the prison interview, defiant, saying this wasn't her design after all. But will you believe her?
You really want to do this? Really? Sure? Yeah.
Jessica Strom's planning to give her loved fiancé John a special present. A bullet in the head.
Just walk right in. Open the door. No time to find
him. If you do not give my car keys and let me leave, I'm going to slice this couch. I just did a slice, and then he screamed. He threw my keys at me, and I said, "Thank you."
And yet, despite all the drama, the relationship endured. Jessica even moved in with her kids.
John, you're a lawyer. You've worked in areas of domestic abuse. Why didn't you just quit this relationship?
Because I loved her.
We have such a strong bond of love. As crazy as that sounds, that we would continue to stay together. You know, it was pure.
Pure, maybe. Bizarre, definitely. After yet another restraining order hearing, a smitten John actually popped the question to Jessica, in front of the judge.
He proposed to me on his knee at a court hearing. And the
Court hearing.
He had a restraining order I had filed. And
You had filed a restraining order against him?
yes,
Did it never occur to you that this is normal?
I'm with my feelings, you know, and he was always there for me.
The start and stop love affair went on for 6 years.
Tonight on an all-new 2020, Designing Women. 3 uncommon women, unlikely culprits. She planned a hit, she planned a heist, and she hooked up with her students.
You were playing with fire.
First, the fiancé, with a funny way of saying I do, caught on tape giggling, singing, all while hiring a hitman to do in her man.
You really want to do this? Really?
Did it never occur to you that this isn't normal?
I know it sounds so bad.
You think? Love you to death. And the bank teller forces strap-on a bum to rob her own bank.
She's saying, please, 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 I don't want to die.
But is she the pawn or the queen? How the plan exploded in her face.
Bank robbery, bomb, kidnapping. You got a trifecta there.
Bombing out. Plus, just sentenced to a lot more than